Yeah, is this technically Vampire Hunter Diaries? I don't know.
Could be.
Finally.
Right?
No, let's just title it Vampire Hunter Diaries. And release it
Hello, and welcome back to the internet's number one fake history podcast, The Lore Boys. Today, we're going to be setting out on a new world journey for a way off the godforsaken rock that is the plane of Ixalan. We're going to be talking about Magic the Gathering, and vampire conquistadors, and dinosaur-riding Incas, and mer people. I'll be your host, Ethan Palmer, to take you through this historical venture. Hop on the Magic School Bus with me, and with me on the Magic School Bus, as always, of course, is
James Miller. I knew we should have stayed home today.
Oh, you are an Arnold.
Please let this be a normal conquest with the new world. No way. And I'm Peter O'Donohue. I've been looking forward to this episode since we started the show, and you told me about dinosaur conquistadors.
Yeah, this episode comes by request from a few of our patrons. Recently, it was Jester was the first one to request it, but very recently, or Jester was the first one to call it out as cool, maybe. But very recently, Darkside Bunny and Magnus have both specifically requested that we cover Ixalan lore. There's lots of Magic the Gathering lore to get through, but like you, Pete, this one has and we've talked about Ixalan specifically a lot on the show because it's a very cool setting. Yeah. And I did download like the Plane Shift PDF, which is like they make the setting for Dungeons and Dragons essentially and give you just like a bunch of resources for that. So I downloaded all that. It's just extremely cool stuff. So we're going to be taking a break from the Phyrexian stuff. We won't talk about that, though Ixalan does play a part in Invasion, and it does have its own storyline. We're not going to be talking much about the actual storyline of Ixalan. We're going to be talking more about the history of the plane and kind of the setup for the story. If you guys like the show, feel free to join the Discord and request more Ixalan lore in our lore request server. Or if you really like the show and you really want to hear more Ixalan lore, consider becoming a Patreon, then joining the Discord and requesting me because I'll pay more attention to you if your name is read. That's just how it works.
Don't like the show and you're willing to pay us, that'd be cool
also,
too. Because
true,
we don't really have anyone in the Patreon content who doesn't like us to give us kind of that angle.
I would honestly probably listen to you most if you hate us and we're paying us. I'd be like, well, this is the one we're most likely to lose then, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So all the haters, give us your money. Thanks.
Speaking of patrons, welcome to new patrons Hurt. I'm sorry. And Jordan. Jordan D. Jordy. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the world, the wonderful world of Lore Boys. So yeah, not too much homework required on this episode for Magic the Gathering. I guess the only thing, if you haven't listened to any of our other episodes, is to know that Magic the Gathering is a multiverse where there's an infinite number of planes to visit. We're going to be talking about one plane in particular. And there's a group of people who can travel between them called Planeswalkers. That's really all you need to know. We're not going to get into colors too much or anything like that, anything too complex, but if it comes up, you can listen to some of our older episodes to understand it better. Cool. You guys want to start? You guys just want to jump right in?
Yeah.
So Ixalan specifically, Pete mentioned dinosaur conquistadors. Specifically, we have vampire conquistadors and dinosaur riding Aztecs.
Yeah.
So this plane posits the question: would Spain have conquered the New World if the Aztecs had dinosaurs? Right.
Right.
I'm not convinced they would have. I'm not convinced that they would have been able to do it. But
in most fiction, especially considering like at the time the actual conquest of the New World happened, where it's like single shot muskets.
Yeah.
In most fiction, dinosaurs are completely bulletproof until the plot dictates otherwise.
Exactly.
So I'm fairly certain that the Aztecs with their dinosaurs would have done absolutely fine. And I don't know, maybe we'd live in a much nicer world where instead of an electric vehicle, you had a dinosaur, Ethan.
I don't know, man. I think there might be some competing resources between dinosaurs and Aztecians. Like a dinosaur probably likes to eat a sheep, but an Aztec also needs to sacrifice the sheep to their gods, right?
True,
So like,
Fair
they might
well,
run
I've
out
seen
of
Jurassic
sheep.
Park. Their gods are you just make your gods the T-Rex, and then it doesn't want to hunt and ends up wrecking your civilization. Or then it wants to hunt. It doesn't want to be fed. Yeah.
Yeah, the Aztecs wipe themselves
Aztecs
out.
don't want to hunt. They don't want to be fed. They want to hunt. Like Alan Grant looking out the window.
Yeah, I'm inclined to think that, especially the Spanish conquistadors fighting in the jungle, not even fighting in like an open field where you can get like one solid volley off against a T-Rex,
Or a
think
cannon.
you'd have a really hard time taking out a T-Rex, right? With a couple flintlocks, like, oh boy.
Imagine some of the smaller dinosaurs making like holes like in Vietnam, and like they have the whole areas underneath and stuff, and then they pop out. That'd be terrifying.
The spikes, it's just full of raptors. Tiger pit. I mean,
or it's just the Stegosaurus. It just puts its like spiny tail, the Thagomizer. Just like
yes,
puts
I was
it in
going
the
to say
bottom of a
thank
hole.
you. Yeah,
I know. I had to beat you to it, Pete.
That's like a pipe cleaner for when everyone's done with the hole too. They could just send the spiky tail through in and out, take all the detritus out.
Fred Flintstone would approve for sure.
Yeah,
it'd be so easy to get rid of Spanish corpses too, right?
Just goring to death the Spanish. It's a living.
Well, you know what? That time is why we have our feral pigs now. It was when the Spanish came over and they brought their little pigums and they left them here. And now that's why we need AR-15s in the South for 30 to 40,
30 to 50 wild hogs.
Yeah,
I may have said this. A quick aside. I was with a friend of mine and some of her friends who are like.
Is it an aside if we haven't got to the meat of anything yet?
I know. A super like I was with like a girl I was dating and some of her friends, like super progressive something, and they were talking about it when I showed up to like this party. And this girl's parents have a ranch in the States, and she's like, the only conservative thing that I have, the only conservative bone in my body that I have is the fact that like you absolutely need a gun to fend off feral hogs. They're unkillable. And I was like, holy Jesus, okay.
But there's that one Reply All podcast that got into it like in depth, and they're pretty left leaning, but they also agreed by the end, like. Yeah, you need a gun. These things are dangerous.
Yeah.
You're allowed to helicopter hunt them. We've talked about them before on the show, but you're allowed to like rent a helicopter with like a 50 cal Gatling gun and just go through the forest and like mow down wild hogs.
I'd love to do that.
And mow down Tim Allen and who else was in that movie?
John Travolta and William H. Macy.
Was John Travolta in that movie?
What movie is this?
Wild
Hogs.
Oh,
not good.
My head, yeah,
it's a bad movie from 2006 or something.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway,
let's talk about Ixalan. So Ixalan it's going to get a little confusing. Where Ixalan is the name of the plane, it is also the name of a continent on the plane. So all the story takes place on the continent. There is another continent which we're going to talk about in setting up, but Ixalan also refers to the plane specifically. So, and like most descriptions of the plane only refer to the continent because in the story, in the cards and everything, you never really go to the other continents. So what they're like, we don't really know. I think it's safe to assume they're like Spain because that's where the Spaniard conquistadors come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Ixalan itself, continent is characterized by dense jungles, lush rainforests, and expansive oceans.
Probably have a pig problem too.
Probably got a pig problem. Well, not yet because the
Spaniards domesticated dinosaurs.
Spaniards
There's
aren't
no
there
fucking
yet.
Pig problem.
The Spaniards aren't there yet. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
You say pigs are smart. Brontosauruses have 2 brains or something, right? They got a brain in their butt.
Really?
Something like that.
No, yeah, it's like they thought it was a brain for a long time, but it's not it's not really a brain. It's just a cluster of nerves. But it's because it's essentially like a relay system because they're so big that for their brain to get their tail to do stuff, like the signal dies. The signals in like your nerves die before it can travel that far. So it has like a relay in its ass that just like strengthens the signal of like nerve impulses.
It's got one of those like Wi-Fi pods, basically.
It's
a two-floor dinosaur.
Whenever you put your hand on like a stove or something, it bypasses all thought, and it's just an electric signal to move or whatever. Yeah. And I guess that's why they have that. All right, they got like another just generator in the butt, so they don't leave their tail in a fire. Yeah.
If you were Rayman and your hand was 30 feet away, then the signal would die. That electric signal wouldn't reach your hands.
Can't feel, definitely can't feel my hands.
That's Rain Man.
Oh,
Rain
shit.
Man.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, but there is a plot point about touching a hot stove in that movie.
Yeah, there is. So the plane, I should say the continent, sorry, is divided into, in kind of, at the time of the story, is divided into 4 distinct regions or civilizations, each with its own unique identity and challenges. So we've got the Sun Empire, the Brazen Coalition, the River Heralds, and the Legion of Dusk. The only one we're not really going to talk about is the Brazen Coalition. I'll give you guys an intro on them, but you'll see why we're not going to talk about them too much. They're not that interesting.
It's a bit of a slow cook or a slow build, right?
Yeah.
For brazing, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am going to brazenly say that was a bad joke. So, these factions are often at loggerheads. They're usually vying for control of Ixalan's resources and political power. One of them is conquistadors, who are pretty expansionist and colonial. So make of that what you will, right? Let's talk about them. We'll go through the 4. Mm-hmm. And I have picture guides for you guys for each of them. If you, the listener, want to see the pictures, consider joining our Patreon, where we will post the pictures after the episode, so you guys can review them
in the Discord through the
which is all caught up now, thanks to Jamie. Actually, it was a little outdated, but I saw you post everything last week.
And thanks to whoever it was who called us out on our bullshit not posting them. You guys got to do that, because we'll give us an inch. We'll take them out.
No.
Yeah.
I secretly like you less when you call me out, but I'll still.
I like it when you call Jamie.
Making me work.
Yeah.
So the first faction is the Sun Empire. These are the ones inspired by the Aztecs primarily. There's a little bit of influence of the Incans as well. This is an ancient civilization of humans ruled by a highly militaristic order of dinosaur-riding warriors. The people of the Sun Empire live in harmony with dinosaurs, considering them sacred beings and symbols of strength. So I posted you guys a picture of Huatli, Radiant Champion. Huatli is called she holds the rank of warrior poet, which is, I guess, if the Dalai Lama threw hands. Because it's like there's one in a generation, and they're basically like reincarnated, and a new one is named after the last one dies, but you only ever have one warrior poet. And Huatli is it. Kind of the de facto. There is an emperor of the Sun Empire, but Huatli is kind of the de facto leader and military leader, and the one in the story whom you interact with the most.
As a big dinosaur enjoyer, I'm heavily biased for this one. This is some of the coolest magic art I've ever fucking seen.
It's very cool, right?
3-headed T-Rex?
It looks like a 3-headed T-Rex at the very least, I'll give you. Wow. And it's got feathers. Pete, you a fan of feathers on dinosaurs?
Some of them, yeah, actually. That's kind of neat. In this case, yes, where what I think may be a Cerberus T-Rex has like a crest of feathers and then feathers on his little gimpy arms. The more realistic stuff where it's just like a big, dumb, shaggy dog, less so. The stylized version is true, yeah.
So I didn't look into Huatli too much, but it does look like she is a planeswalker.
She also has a War Fan, which is an underrated fantasy weapon. They're very cool.
I never even heard of a War Fan, but she does have one. So the people of the Sun Empire are said to have been formed from clay by Kinjali, the Awakening Sun. We'll talk maybe on the bonus a bit about the Awakening Sun a little bit more, but it's essentially their deity. It's a triumvirate. Next up is the River Heralds, who are heavily inspired by the Mayans of Central America. They are a secretive faction of merfolk who inhabit the mystical River Heralds refuge. Once the dominant force on Ixalan, the merfolk these days stick to a more nomadic lifestyle, and we'll kind of get into the why of that. So I posted you guys just a generic picture of a River Herald with a big frog.
Oh, wow.
That frog's face it got my ass. I got the merfolk are very I guess axolotl themed with like the crest on the side, which makes sense based on the location that's based on.
Yeah, so merfolk is a pretty common typing in Magic the Gathering. It's a tribal essentially. So you get a lot of merfolk decks, which tend to be a lot of small creatures, kind of like murlocs in Hearthstone, if you guys are familiar with Hearthstone at all. Which I say that for Jamie's benefit more than anything.
Lots of little cards building up, and the more you have down together, the more they benefit each other.
Exactly. That's how tribals work. It wasn't so tribal heavy in Ixalan. They are just like stronger cards and more combo mechanics and a lot of instants and sorceries with these ones specifically. You'll notice his weapons and his armor is made out of jade. Jade is like a really common material for the River Heralds. They make these like elemental golems essentially out of jade that they can use to protect the forest essentially.
Cool.
Really cool.
So
lots
there
of
are 9
greens and blues and oranges in these folks.
Yeah, they're green and blue, and I think, like Pete says, I think the orange is like axolotl inspired because this one has the flared frills or the gills on the outside, whatever you call them.
Yeah.
So there's 9 tribes making up the River Heralds, one for each tributary of the Great River. They're hippies, sworn to use the power of nature and friendship to protect the world from natural disaster.
Bare-assed hippies.
All right. The Brazen Coalition, the one that I said we wouldn't talk about too much, is a loose-knit society of pirates organized, in 4 fleets. They live primarily in the Stormwreck Sea these days, but originally hail from a distant continent known as Torazon, where millennia ago they were driven out by the Legion of Dusk.
Cool. I first thought that our episode was going to be about the vampirates and lizard people from Warhammer, because you only sent us one image before the episode. I forgot about Ixalan.
Oh, you were very excited. I mean, yeah, I would be. Yeah, well, I'll do the. Have we not done the Sorox? No, or the Saurus? We'll do them someday.
No, we haven't. Look, you showed me a picture of people riding dinosaurs, and I got excited. I didn't think much about it. That was
we just. I assume on like bonus content and stuff, we've talked about like the slowed and stuff a lot. And like their ability to kind of manipulate everything and then being the oldest race and all that, but maybe not a dedicated episode. So we're not going to talk about the Brazen Coalition mainly just because like they're just pirates. That's all you really need to know about them. There's some cool characters for sure, and a lot of the story beats of the main story follow the pirates. But as an actual like history, they're not that interesting.
Okay,
cool. So finally, the Legion of Dusk is an alliance also from the continent of Torazon between the Church of Dusk and the vampire monarch Queen Meralda. The Legion is led by by aristocratic vampires who are made undead via a ceremony known as the Rite of Redemption. Cool. So I post you guys a picture of Vona, Butcher of Magan by Volkan Baga, which gives a good vibe for what these guys are, what they're kind of about.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very classic Spanish conquistador, a lot more gold, like way more stylized. And although they have like a cathedral on their fucking sailboat in the back.
Very, very Gothic, right? Which is from Spain as well. Yeah. Specifically South Spain, where like Columbus sailed from, Barcelona.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think the gold is like, I mean, that's, you say too much gold for conquistadors. They didn't wear it in their armor or put it on their ships, but it's what they were kind of known for, right? Was stealing all the gold from South America.
I think it was silver.
It was all precious metals, but a lot of gold as well. They said there's a famous story of Cortez, one of the more infamous conquistador captains, I guess. He like told a story about like he held a tribal chief hostage until the locals filled an entire room with like gold, essentially.
Right. Yes.
How true that is, I don't fucking know. Maybe some historian does, but that's like as the story goes. So a lot of gold at the time as well, all stolen.
Yeah.
So the Legion of Dusk is an expansionist colonialist society whose expeditions are driven by a need for more, wouldn't you know it, enemy blood to drink, not gold. They need blood. So those conquests are led by vampire conquistadors and priests, with human soldiers filling the rank and file.
And you better fill this room full of blood, or else I'm going to be real upset.
But sir, it just keeps leaking out of the grate on the floor. I know what I said.
I gotta say, back in the day when I was playing it, I was like raving about Greedfall, and the art style of this too is just like, I love colonial fantasy. It's like such an underused style.
Yeah.
To inject into something.
I mean, I think South America is like criminally underused, and South American inspirations are criminally underused in a lot of like fantasy.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of their myth and everything, while like we talked a ton about Norse mythology on like the God of War episodes and everything, and how there's so much overlap with like Greek and Roman because they're so intermingling.
Yeah.
But the fact that you know, writing was so well developed and history was so recorded by the time that Western settlers made it to the New World. It just means that like there was so little like mixing of their myths, right? Like there was so little there was no mixing of cultures up until 1500 or whatever, right? So late 1400s, I think technically, but yeah, I think it's just super cool and super underutilized for that reason.
Totally.
And colorful too. It's like always so cool to look at.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I saw I maybe somebody posted it in this Discord server or another one, but somebody was talking about how the ancient Greeks would use color to describe emotion. Like, so if you said like how it was Madeline Miller who wrote the Song of Achilles, and in the Song of Achilles she writes like, oh, his skin was the color of freshly pressed olive oil. And then somebody posted a picture of freshly pressed olive oil, which is like bright green.
That was on Reddit. I saw that, and it's like Kermit the Frog or Shrek green. Yeah. Like it's like very green. Yeah. Somebody
tweeted that meme essentially, and she just responded to it with this like very well clearly researched. Like she's a like a professor, I think, in like ancient Greece essentially. So she just like goes into this whole like, oh, here's how the Greeks actually use color to describe emotion, and they very rarely would like mean the color whenever they used it as like an adjective kind of thing. So that's kind of just what I meant. But just showing how like, yeah, I guess it's just so different back in the day than it is.
I saw it as like a men writing woman type thing, like where it was like she walked in and her skin glowed like freshly squeezed olives or something, and like and instead of like what he meant, which is like an olive skinned beautiful woman, it just comes in looking like Shrek. But
anyway, Fiona, come on,
Fiona, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fucking sexist, man. Jesus, you forgot there's a lady Shrek.
Doesn't she become? Oh no, she decides she wants to stay a Shrek at the end.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Okay, so the vampires of Ixalan regularly undertake something called the blood fast, in which they starve themselves for a period of time. When this is over, they enter into a state known as the rapture, in which they revert to an animalistic trance and attack anything on sight.
I gave up white wine on Lent, and then after Easter, I almost killed myself with white wine.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I gave up beer and switched to white wine.
Yeah. Well, it's like, they stop it, but they get it right after. Like, I don't think for Lent you're supposed to like indulge in whatever you've been given up, right?
Yeah, no. On Good Friday, you're supposed to go ballistic into an animalistic rage.
Yeah.
On Good Friday,
bite through the glass of a bottle of wine and like
shotgun a bottle of wine, punch through the side with your keys.
So in the time period of the first stories on Ixalan, these factions are all orbiting Orazca, the Golden City. Lost to history for centuries, Orazca was forced to be abandoned by powerful forces. Only the River Heralds were trusted to know of its location, and even they deliberately abandoned it and only kept a loose knowledge of its location known. And we'll get into the why and the what, how that happened, essentially, towards the end of this episode. But before then, we're going to, go into the Lost City of Gold, with its golden walls and ceilings and floors and everything. But Orazca held something else of value that serves basically as the MacGuffin for the story.
Is Orazca AUR?
ORAZCA.
Okay, so it's French for gold instead of Latin. Nice.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what it is in Spanish.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Spanish for gold
Lady Shreks.
Is Oro. Oro with as ORO.
Oh, and bull is Toro. So T plus gold means bull.
High T gold. High T gold, which is a bull.
Got it.
So to learn more about the immortal sun, we're going to need to leave Ixalan altogether to start.
Okay. Where are we going?
Throughout the multiverse, there are numerous ancient civilizations which revere the same divine bringer of justice. Described invariably as a noble sphinx and arbiter of law, they are referring to the Sphinx planeswalker Azor. So I posted a picture for you guys of Azor.
And that's AZ gold in Spanish.
Exactly, yeah. AZ French gold.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah. This guy is rad as shit. This is like a Sumerian deity.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is art of him on Ixalan. So that's like the jade stairs and the large like golden throne or dais that he's on, essentially at the top of the set of stairs. The stairs don't seem very functional. They kind of just like go to the bottom of like a curved overhang, which seems weird.
Yeah, you'd have to like jump up and climb over it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a diving board with a staircase under it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I expected him to have a cat head and not a dwarf's head, but he said Sphinx, right?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know Sphinx could have different types of heads.
The Sphinx has a human head.
Sphinx has a human head, though. I'm like looking him up.
Really? Wasn't it a cat? What? I thought they had a cat face, and then no, they don't have a cat
got
face.
a human head.
No.
You really threw me for a loop there. I was like,
Napoleon didn't shoot the nose off a cat statue.
Is there cat statues in Egypt?
Yes,
I'm going crazy.
yes. There's probably definitely cat statues in Egypt. Yeah. Not the Sphinx, though.
The one that there isn't.
Okay.
Yeah. Pyramids, cat statues. It's just it's buried, and you just see the ears poking out of the sand.
They all started as cat statues. It's erosion that makes them look like humans.
Yeah. So where Azor is from has been lost to time. It's said that the noble stature of many other sphinxes throughout the magic multiverse is likely from his influence specifically. So he is a very old one, very well known. I friggin' was reading this and I said, Azor, I know that name. I know that name from somewhere. I tried to find where we talked about it, but I can't even find the script from the episode, but I'm pretty sure we talk about him on the Jace Beleren in the Hangover episode where we talk about Ravnica specifically.
Okay. I thought it would have come up in Game of Thrones because I think Azor Ahai is one of
the prince who is promised.
Yeah.
The Azor Ahai. Yeah.
No. I'm pretty sure we're going to know him from Ravnica because he wrote the Guild Pact in Ravnica, which we talked about extensively what the Guild Pact was, because it's basically forms the foundation for the different houses of Ravnica. Which that Jamie, you weren't on that episode, so if you're scratching your head trying to remember, it was just me and Pete, I'm pretty sure. And it was 4.5 years ago or something.
Yeah, so, I just accepted it as not remembering, even if I was there. But anyways, yeah.
So I have a quote for you guys from the aptly named "The Arbiter of Law Left Chaos in His Wake" by Alison Lurs and Greg Lubin. Alison Lurs is the primary author on most of the Ixalan stuff. So this is Azar speaking to the planeswalkers Jace Beleren and Vraska on Ixalan. For thousands of years, I planeswalked through countless worlds, Captain Vraska. They were strange and unruly, full of brutal societies plagued with violence and disorder. I used hieromancy to give these people the gift of stability. I created systems of governance to cure them of their chaos. I selflessly toiled to improve the multiverse, and my gifts turned worlds from places of madness and brutality into structured bastions of peace. I founded countless systems of governance to shape the communal destiny of countless planes, and your rejection of my decree is most unwise. The law is meant to be followed. So the purpose of that quote is just show you what kind of narc this guy is.
Yeah, no shit, eh?
Is AOL stand for Arbiter of Law?
Yeah, AOL Online stands for Arbiter of Law Online.
Okay, got it.
You've got narcs.
So Azor is, generally a narc. His intentions seem to be good. He's very strict, very unforgiving, and he's like a bit of a goober. And like, if you guys remember the Guild Pack episode, he creates this Guild Pack, and it's just like ends up like destroying Ravnica because like everything is too set. And the Guild Pack was essentially like he spoke these rules into law, and like using magic made them like kind of the laws of that plane where it's like really hard to violate them. Jace ends up becoming the living Guild Pack towards the end. And again, we did talk about that on an episode at some point. It might not be that episode that I'm referring to, but we have talked about it before. I know that. Or I had a fever dream. I'm not sure. That said, his MO, Azor's MO for a long time was traveling the multiverse and giving the gift of law to those he visited. So he would just visit like these nascent kind of civilizations and just be like, here's how you do laws, essentially. You should have a ruling class and a serving class.
Yeah, I was going to say, all of your women are topless. No one's wearing coconut bras. I brought that was the gift of shame.
The more I think on it, the more I think on it, I'm pretty sure I was in a Jace episode, at least one.
We did a few for sure,
Okay.
and we've talked about Jace a lot. He is and has been kind of the the Magic fanboy guy for a long time, it's possible you were on the Ravnica episode too.
I remember he was like an incel. Is kind of how we painted him.
Is he?
Because he was a nerd.
We might have painted him like that. Yeah. That's a goof from 4.5 years ago, which Jamie remembers the goofs from a long time ago. I remember the lore from a long time ago, and we never crossed the street.
I just remember him being like the loser of Magic the Gathering. It's like this guy, he sucks.
No, there was that
was
Venser.
That was Venser.
Venser was the
Venser.
incel.
We painted as the incel, the hard incel. Yeah.
Okay.
You have been on episodes where we've talked about Jace before, at the very least, but
not important.
So Azor takes his job seriously. He often considers the planes that he visits under his protection. So even after he leaves, he kind of thinks of them as like, oh yeah, I established law there. Nobody should break the law because you're going against me and what I say.
Okay.
So fans of the Magic the Gathering will already recognize that the color combination for the intellectual blue and the orderly white is named Azorius. And it's for your boy. So the names of those color combinations, originally the two combinations, so like Boros, which is red and white, and Rakdos, which is red and black, and Azorius,
Santa Claus,
which is red
red
and
and green.
Exactly, yeah. Comes from the Ravnican houses. So what he created with the guild pack, essentially, those names come from there, and Azorius was named after him, which is orderly and smart.
Cool.
Despite all his power, there are still those in the multiverse who could be a real thorn in Azor's side. It wasn't long before our old friend Nicol Bolas would poke his head up on a plane that Azor had sworn to protect.
You can't do anything in Magic the Gathering without this guy getting involved somehow.
Well, you can now. So he's not really a thing anymore. The new villain is the Phyrexians, and the Phyrexians do visit Ixalan, like I said, in one of the more recent Invasion of the Multiverse, I think it's called. But yeah. For a long time, it was Yawgmoth, and then they got rid of Yawgmoth, and it became Bolas for, I don't know, 15 years or something crazy. Where he was just like, he was always the bad guy, and he was always meddling. So he pokes his head up on one of those planes that Azor had sworn to protect. The magnetic dragon conquered it. Azor didn't favor his chances in a head-to-head battle, because why would you favor your chances in a head-to-head battle against the most powerful being in existence?
I really like how you said that he's always meddling at magnetic dragon, but anyways.
Instead, Azor, being smart, being orderly, decides to meet up with Bolas's twin, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, which...
yes, him.
I cannot remember if we ever talked about him, but I'm glad Pete remembers the name at the very least. So.
Yeah, because he did some shit with a Johnny, right?
Probably.
You've talked about him before. Yeah.
He does his shit for a long time. And I think this was a retcon at some point, but he does kind of reincarnate a Sarkhan, who we talked about on some episode as well, which I also can't remember which episode. One of the Dominaria episodes, but I remember which one. So he meets up with Ugin, the Bolas's spirit twin brother, who's like he's the good guy. He's the good side of Bolas, I guess. And the two come up with a plan, though Azor will have to pay a steep price to enact it. Azor searches the multiverse for the last plane he would ever visit, settling on the lush forests and winding rivers of Ixalan. Another quote from Azor speaking with Vraska here. As caretaker and arbiter of law for the entirety of the multiverse, it was my duty to collaborate for the greater good. The immortal sun was built to imprison one specific enemy. It amplifies the magical abilities of whoever touches it, and it prevents planeswalkers from leaving a plane. The perfect cage for a diabolical planeswalker. I gave up my spark to help create the immortal sun, the lock of my prison, my greatest gift to all living things. What evil were you trying to imprison? Vraska asked. A fiend who is a danger to all the multiverse. Our plan naturally was perfect, but my friend failed. So we talked in talking about Ixalan. We have talked about the immortal sun. The thing about Ixalan is that if you planeswalk here, you can't planeswalk away because of this artifact called the immortal sun.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's why Bolas would never go, because he'd be stuck with all whatever ripe mangoes for the rest of his life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's not explicitly stated, and I have to assume that Azor understood this risk. But he would have been sacrificing himself and the plane and the entire plane, right? In trapping Bolas there, because Bolas would have just conquered it for sure and probably killed him and enslaved everybody. But his ultimate goal was hey, I'll die, but he won't be able to leave, and he'll just be stuck here. until until inevitably a Tezzeret or something planeswalks there and figures shit out.
Yeah.
But Bolas never goes to Ixalan. So when Azor arrives on Ixalan, he finds a quiet place to himself and carves a massive slab of granite and pours out his Planeswalker Spark into it. So he gets this big stone, puts his Planeswalker Spark into it, and that creates the Immortal Sun. The Immortal Sun, as it would come to be known, grants those who stand upon it godlike powers, but it has an even more peculiar property, which is it traps all Planeswalkers on the plane, right? Yeah, so he even was like straight off the bat, like, there goes my Planeswalker Spark, I'll never be able to leave, kind of thing.
Magic Rocks, bros.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Granite. Don't take it for granted.
No. Is granite a rock, or is it just cold lava?
Well, isn't that's most rocks, isn't it?
Not necessarily.
How are rocks? Where do
Obsidian
rocks
is
come from?
Melted
It's just
glass.
Oh yeah.
Rocks come from a bunch of different places. Some of them come from pressure cleared between tectonic plates. Granite specifically is when lava tries to push up, like lava tries to create a volcano. So magma is pushing up through the crust of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets blocked and it doesn't have enough pressure to push through the crust, then that magma will eventually cool, and that turns into granite.
How's sulfur come about?
I don't think sulfur's a
Sulfur's
rock,
an element.
Yeah.
I know, but it's around those the same places you'd find granite.
In the ground.
Well, at the top of a volcano. Don't you remember in Shrek whenever they're going up and Donkey's like, "What smells, Shrek?" And he's like, "That's the sulfur."
Yeah.
I think he says brimstone, but brimstone might be another word for sulfur. And also specifically, granite is not volcanoes. The magma didn't make a volcano; it failed in making the volcano.
Right. Well, a failed volcano. I like that. I'd like to think they tried. They're trying.
They did try,
aspiring volcanoes.
Yeah, that's fair.
Brimstone, if you Google it, the top image is, I guess, like an Overwatch character now, or like a new Overwatch guy, and a bunch of Westerns. So
cool.
Very good.
So that's what it is, Jamie. You were way off. So Azor's created this Immortal Sun. Ugin, for his part, leaves to the multiverse to work on luring Bolas to the plane. From Azor's point of view, with his planeswalking wings clipped, Ugin simply does not return. So the story continues. He was to lure our foe to a faraway plane, and I was to use the Immortal Sun to enhance my hieromancy and summon that foe here to Ixalan. But I never received the signal to activate the Immortal Sun. I do not know my associate's fate, Azor said with a flick of his tail. We devised the plan over 1,000 years ago, and I came to Ixalan a little over 100 years after that. He failed. I do not know what happened, but my execution was perfect. Vraska resisted the urge to hurl herself out the nearest window. He's been cooped up on this plane for 1,000 years. Azor continued rambling. I did not want anything to do with the Immortal Sun. It was a reminder of my friend's failure, so I decided to give the gift of governance to this plane. Ixalan was to be ruled by whoever possessed the Immortal Sun, and I initially gifted it to a monastery in the east, in Torazon. So, nothing like coming to a plane, devising a plan, not getting the bat signal in the sky, and then just being like, well, I guess I'm just going to meddle in mortal affairs for the rest of time.
Yeah, my sphere of influence just became a lot smaller. But
So some 800 years ago, the continent of Torazon was flourishing under a renaissance. Scientific advances, a blossoming of the arts, and vibrant trade was happening across the continent. Torazon is that other continent I was kind of talking about.
It's the stand-in for Europe, basically. Yeah,
exactly. Or the stand-in for Spain, maybe more specifically. We don't really know. Very little is actually known about it because all the story takes place on the continent of Ixalan.
Right.
So the continent was not unified. Instead, it was made up of various city-states and lesser nations, which lived, for the most part, peaceably. One such city-state was a remote monastery, or led by a remote monastery nestled in the mountains, where they had in their possession a giant slab of stone infused with the Eau de Sphinx. It remained under the protection of those holy custodians for generations, where it became an object of religious reverence, and people across the continent came to worship it as a relic. So actually, for like a good while, Azor's plan does work. Azor's plan, when Jace and Vraska are talking to him, they kind of accuse him of like all the meddling, and specifically on Ravnica, because Vraska, I think, is originally from Ravnica, or she at least spent a lot of time there, and Jace spent a lot of time on Ravnica as well. He became the Living Guild Pact. they see like that it really didn't work. It created all these like class divides and poverty and all these other terrible things. And Azor's defense is always just like, I gave them a perfect system of governance. If they mess it up, it's because they're messy mortals and they messed it up. Like it was their incompetence. Yeah, right. Can't believe this guy's a snob.
Introducing magic cops, and it's just like, it's class divide. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah, exactly. This CIA planting crack cocaine in like poor communities, and then being like, "Yeah, see, it's their own fault." I don't know.
I don't know if I see it more like something like communism. If we all shared equally and there was no greed and no anything, that's fine. We're good. But it's the greed and everything that it's like us. We would ruin the tablet too.
Oh, we would. Yeah.
We'll get into the socialists in a bit. Don't worry.
Don't worry. They got plenty of tablets to fuck up in history.
Yeah, okay.
If I control F socialists, something will come up in my script. So okay. we will get there. That wasn't
perfect.
So it's with these priests or these monks of this monastery. But after enough time, that religious power does kind of turn to political power, which again is what Azor wanted. He said that the land should be ruled by whoever possesses the immortal sun. But the monastery was quickly becoming more influential than maybe they should. Wasn't long before some local warlord named Pedron the Wicked decided that maybe priests just didn't have the stomach for leadership. Pedron gathers his forces, storms the monastery, and kills everyone, leaves the last custodian of the artifact, a woman named Alenda, dying on the floor. Just as he was set to take the stone for himself, however, as it's described in the history books, a winged creature descended and grabbed it and flew off with it. So Azor flies down, retrieves the stone. He's like, this didn't work. Decides to leave the mortals to the mess they'd made. Doesn't help anyone. Doesn't stabilize the dying woman or anything like that. Just like you guys really fucked this up.
Apply pressure.
Yeah.
For whenever they like kill and like you're trying to get rid of people, like they used to ask for scalps and stuff. If you're asking for the scalps of a monk, I feel like you can fake that easier. You can grab a butt cheek or two.
Oh, just a sheep.
Yeah, I got like 20 of them.
Yeah, you can just take them from you can take like 5 from one guy's body, right? Just
exactly.
Different smooth places.
Yeah.
The chubbier the guy, the more scalps. The chubbier the monk, the more scalps. Yeah.
Dude, I got so many scalps.
So the continent descends into all-out war because while they weren't like super involved in ruling, they were the de facto leaders of the place, like spiritual leaders, religious leaders. Balances of power are shifting. The then nation of Torazon forms a church on the bones of the old monastery. This new war, a civil war breaks out of the then nation Torazon, and it rages for over 300 years, with the church taking sides and no factions backing down until 2 main factions had coalesced, which is the forces of Torazon, the state, and a rebel faction branded the Apostasine Princes. Essentially, it was like 3 city-states made up the nation of Torazon, and it was inherited by the king's daughter and his 2 sons. And the daughter had the most land because she was the oldest, and the 2 sons decided they wanted the most land, so they unified to fight her. This civil war is raging for 300 years.
This is very Euro politics, too.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, the Pope moves to Budapest, and all of a sudden you have the Holy Roman Empire, which is none of those words, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's clearly Euro inspired, like you say, and yeah, I had it in my mind that it was it's just Spain. I do think that this specific faction is probably the Spain, but you're probably right that it probably does refer to. There probably is more people out there.
Than just the Spanish? I doubt it, but maybe with the multiverse, yeah.
Yeah. I know you're out there, somewhere out there. That was about the Spanish.
Yeah. They're still searching to this day.
Yeah.
So eventually, with the great times X grandchildren of those who started the war now in charge, the rebels seem to be getting the upper hand. The Apostasine Princes had won a series of victories and were closing in on the Torazon capital, when, suddenly, a figure wreathed in black vapor appeared and charged their lines. The Dark Rider slaughtered all in her path, causing the rebel army to break ranks and retreat. With the battle won, the stranger removed her hood and introduced herself. She was Alenda, the priest left to die on the church floor some 300 years ago.
Ooh,
as
spark
Pedron
time.
had tried to steal the immortal sun. Not a spark. She just didn't die. She might be a planeswalker, actually.
Covered her wounds with scalps.
She hid under all the scalps of all the fat priests and managed to survive. She's confirmed not a planeswalker, so she survives. Don't really know how. She reveals herself. The kind of then priests and historians and nobles are all like, "That's impossible. You can't be her. That was 300 years ago. Even if you didn't die then, you'd be dead now from old age."
Tell me something only someone 300 years old would know.
Yeah. They
wouldn't know.
You'd say, "Give me 5 Bs for a quarter." So
she's just covered in onions all around her belt.
Onions on her belt, exactly. So Alenda confessed that she had never given up her search for the artifact as its last custodian, and that she had gone so far as to take on the blessing of vampirism so that she did not have to give up the chase.
That's hardcore. That's fucking rad.
And she gives Serana a run for her money, man. This is a pretty vampire, yeah.
So the Pontifex, the head of the Church of Torzon, took her transformation as a selfless act of sacrifice, and it wasn't long before all the nobles were lining up to show their selflessness and gain immense power and immortality.
Saucy, it's spelled Elenda. Alenda, if you want
for your R34 search.
Yeah, for your sexy vampires.
Yeah, is this technically Vampire Hunter Diaries? I don't know.
We can
call it
finally,
right?
No, let's just title it Vampire Hunter Diaries.
So Alenda had returned to help Torzon in its civil war and kind of save the nation, but her search for the immortal sun on this continent was over, as it had been moved across the sea to the continent of Ixalan. But more on that after the break. Before there was a Sun Empire, human civilization arose in several city-states scattered across the continent. One of the city-states, Orazca, gradually rose to prominence over the others, thanks in large part to the charisma and cunning of its ruler, Chikanto Intli. She began uniting the other cities under her leadership. Even at this time, the humans and the dinosaurs they commanded did not expand into the territory of the River Heralds, and the merfolk brought goods to Orazca in trade for items they could not make themselves. Chikanto Intli transformed the scattered and fractious city-states into a mighty empire. Peter? Is there something you want to share with the class?
It's because we're talking about all this like political intrigue and just the dinosaurs they commanded. Just like, oh yeah, I forgot.
Oh yeah.
You go to the gates of the city. It's papers, please. There's a dinosaur in like a little suit.
Oh
just
man,
T-Rex trying to like reach down to its fanny pack to like get its papers out.
You can get like the anti-pickpocket strap on the chest like you have in France, right?
You wear it bandolier style.
Yeah.
But he really has to look down to see what he's writing, you know?
Yeah.
Like he's got to get chin to chest.
Probably could. If they had like bird bones in their neck, which they might have, they probably could. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail you there. It just it caught me off guard. I forgot.
I also noticed that name sounded like that cyberpunk Arasaka Corporation or whatever. What's it?
Chikanto?
Asaka?
Arasaka is the company.
Yeah, but no, is there something called Asaka that you just said?
Orazca was the city of gold. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay, you said that earlier. Okay.
Arasaka Industries. Orazca Industries. No, so that's a quote from the Planeswalker's Guide to Ixalan, Part 1. And it continues, during this period, the merfolk did something they had never done before and have not done since. They built villages and even made a sort of city of their own. In keeping with their tradition, these settlements were shaped from and constructed in harmony with the natural environment, but they were permanent. The majestic deep-root tree is a surviving remnant of their ancient city, and it is still revered as a place where their ancestors dwelled. Generations later, a new ruler set his sights higher. Emperor Apatsek Intli was gifted the immortal sun in a fateful encounter and vowed to conquer the merfolk and raise the jungle.
Cool.
That dude, yeah, it's just an under the sea story. But the person who's they're not under the sea people, right? That's trying to steal it from the under the sea people.
No, so the immortal sun doesn't exist here. Yeah,
Okay.
it's still on Torzon, so it's still with the what would become the vampire people. And the merfolk and the humans are getting along really well. These specifically aren't under the sea merfolk; they're river merfolk. So there's there's what's called the Great River, which is the Amazon essentially.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, they like the merfolk are broken up into 9 tribes, one for each tributary to the Great River. So they're river under the river folk, and they are living in harmony with the humans until not yet, but eventually Azor will give them the gift of godlike powers to their emperor, and it wouldn't you fucking know it goes awry when you concentrate all the power at the top.
They're gonna kill all the beavers because they're always trying to stop the water flowing. Their natural enemy.
Yeah, when he's not like raising the jungle as in like, oh, I want to take care of these trees. He's raising it to the ground, right? That's his ambition.
Yeah, so it's the human emperor who's going to get the stone. He is raising it to the ground. He's like, we're going to drive the merfolk back more than anything. It's more conquest than anything, colonialism, which is a pretty big theme in this set.
Haven't we learned anything from Lord of the Rings? You can't give the all-powerful thing to the human.
Yeah,
Things are going to go wrong.
They're going to mess it up.
They get greedy.
And Azor's done it twice now. He gave it to the humans on the other continent. They all decided to turn into vampires to try and get it back. And now he's giving it to these ones. They're like, cool, we'll genocide the fish people.
They keep paving paradise. I don't understand why.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, a lot of parking though.
It's cheap.
There might be a dog bark or two in the audio because this one,
she's priming to bark right now.
It's about time where I normally would have taken her out. We're recording early, but
hey, you want a piece of me? Oh, she's doing a little stretch and doing a little.
She's doing the little snaps. Yeah, exactly. To be like, get going.
So after Azor had descended on Torzon and taken the immortal sun from the church there, he flew across the ocean and decided to give humans another chance. The first great empress of the Sun Empire was Chikanto Intli. Before the immortal sun came to Ixalan shores, this empress had united all the states into a centralized government orbiting her own city of Araska.
Well, that's not too bad. And this is kind of like a fool me once scenario, right?
This is before the immortal sun. So they were doing great. The humans were actually thriving. You know what I mean? The Aztec Empire here was doing a really good job. Mm-hmm. They had united all the city-states. They had their city of gold. It's this newfound prosperity. I think that Lore Boy's canon, Araska probably turns into the city of gold in this time because trade is probably flourishing and they probably like have the gold to spend kind of thing. They live in peace and prosperity.
Put it up. It's like exactly. Wallpaper. It's like there's nothing to spend it on.
There's too much gold.
Instead of tin foil, like putting into the oven, you have gold foil. You're putting your chicken wings on to go in, or you're half merfolk or whatever. You're having your fillet of merfolk.
I don't want to scrape the baking sheet afterwards. Put some gold foil down on it.
Exactly.
Fucking throw it away. It's like, do we recycle? I'm not gonna bother. I'm out of blue bag.
You can ball it up. Let the cat play with it.
Yeah.
So they live in peace and prosperity for a long time. Even after the death of the Empress, they're content with their borders. They are building strong relations with the merfolk of the River Heralds until that gosh dang egomaniacal immortal Sphinx decides to descend from the sky and give the powers of a god to the then Emperor Apadzek Intli I. So the immortal sun is brought to Araska. It's given an honorary resting place in a massive spire in the city known as the Tower of Triumph. And its chamber comes to be known as the Sanctum of the Sun, which you guys will recognize. Looks like what Azor was standing on.
Did you say Trump Tower?
Yeah.
Wow.
He would, honestly. Yeah.
He would, yeah. So it's from this chamber that Apadzek rules, and the humans of the Sun Empire quickly turn on their merfolk allies, like the quote kind of told you. The River Heralds gave up on permanent cities, went back to a nomadic lifestyle along the Great River, while the Sun Empire pushed its borders right to the shores of the continent.
This picture, like, it's really cool, but the light beams make no sense unless there's multiple light sources. Like,
well, they probably have like gems to redirect it or mirrors or something.
That's the immortal sun. So that's the giant triangular granite slab of the immortal sun in that.
It's magic.
So it glows. It is the source of the glow.
Okay.
Okay.
Magic is fine.
Exactly. Also, yeah, just I don't know. Yeah, as magic as a light bulb would be, I guess, or 3 light bulbs, if you will. It's like if you had a light bulb and you put a stencil over it, it's going to shine out of each of the holes, right? Is the idea.
It's the Christmas it's the paper snowflake over a light bulb, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, but they wouldn't all form and like focus into the. I don't really care. You know, it's not a big deal. It's just a magic
light shining
thing.
Up or down?
Down.
Okay.
Yeah. If the light's shining up, that would be a little more. I could buy what young Hao Han was trying to draw here.
Young Hao Han.
Yeah.
So the Sun Empire is pushing out, using the power of this immortal sun. Its leader Apatsik, which, if you type Apatsik into Google Docs, it loves to correct it to Aztec, which is very confusing in the context of this episode. So they do push too far. Apatsek's misuse of the immortal sun drew the empire too thin, and his policies back home weren't much better. Apatsik the First had cemented the Sun Empire's control of the continent, but had cemented in them the expansionist ideologies which would follow them over the coming generations. Right up to where the Magic the Gathering story starts, the empire is still clashing on its borders with the River Heralds. So, he pushes out, he pisses off the River Heralds. The conquistadors will eventually land on the shores, and they'll go to war with them as well. And his misuses continue, get bad enough that people eventually abandon a city made of gold. They're like, this guy sucks so much, we're going to leave, even though the city's fucking, it's the golden city.
That's crazy, dude.
I'm moving out of Trump Tower. Damn it.
Right?
I was watching, we were talking about how we never use South American stories for as much as other stories that we use like in Europe and North America. Paraguay apparently just like tried to take on all their borders at once, and they border Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, and Uruguay is not far off. There's like a little bit of Argentina separating them. Okay. And they fought a war on all 4 fronts at once and ended up losing. But what a crazy story. Imagine trying to fight 4 neighbors at
that's
once.
very dumb.
How did that happen?
There's an expression in English for if you're doing something poorly, you're saying you're waging a war on 2 fronts, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, let alone 4.
Yeah. I don't know when it happened, but Anthony Bourdain went there and he ate with a bunch of rich people, and they were like saying, yeah, we have a really fucked up past with that. But
ate with a bunch of rich people. It's like, it was a terrible thing to watch from up here in the Paraguay Trump Tower.
Yeah.
1864 to 1870. It was also known of the War of the Triple Alliance. Basically, everyone against you.
Yeah.
1864 September to 1864 October.
Yeah. But yeah, apparently, like most people, like some of the older people now, or I guess the really, really old people, they had to hide. Like the boys would dress as girls so they wouldn't get enlisted and stuff. And they were sending like full on children just with sticks out there, painted as guns. Like fucking crazy, man.
That's wild.
Yeah, so we could do a story on that one day, but
yeah.
It didn't
Laura
work.
of Paraguay win.
Anthony Bourdain, Laura win.
Yeah.
So the ruling class in our fantasy Paraguay gets so unbearable that people flee Araska, right down to the last person, as near as I can tell. This part is like really vague. Doesn't really explain why everyone left Araska. Azo returns
based on real history. It's not the Anthony Bourdain thing, but like there was like I want to say it's the Inca collapse. Like civilizations came and went before Western contact, and like people don't know why, right? Yeah,
and it's essentially that. Like we do kind of know why. That it's like the civilization didn't collapse. They formed like other city-states. It's specifically Araska, the city, like the city of gold, that they end up leaving.
Okay,
I'm going to say Lore Boy's canon is like Apatsek, the leader, is like unbearable. Maybe he commits some atrocities in his own city that like ends up culling the herd a little bit. Whatever the case, people are kind of like leaving.
Global warming. The city made of gold doesn't dissipate heat very good. Very hot.
Reflects it right back.
Very hot. You gotta get sizzle yourself on your floors when you get up in the morning.
Sunglasses that like came all the way down to stop the light from reflecting off the streets, right?
Yeah, exactly. I put my glasses so far into my eyes to see if it works.
Is it Grandpa Simpson again in in The Simpsons where the streets are paved with gold and the cars are just like crashing everywhere.
Yeah, they're sliding all over the place.
There's no traction. Yeah.
He was complaining about like poor people. Like, you think the cities are paved with gold, and young Jasper is like, they are. And then like some guy just crashes his car.
So Azor returns, sees that his plans to stabilize the region by concentrating an extreme amount of power in a very limited percentage of the population has once again failed. And he decides to turn to the River Heralds and offer them the same deal, essentially. Just like, yeah, I'm going to give it to you guys now, and you guys will be in charge. The merfolk, however, like some good socialists, decide that that's too much power to be amongst the people. They opt to leave the immortal sun in its sanctum and collectively forget where that is.
Cool.
Okay.
So the reason it's the lost city of gold is just because the merfolk said, like, it's illegal to talk about it where it is. Okay, so just don't. If you know, don't tell anybody. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say a bit more Lore Boys canon. The location of the artifact was forgotten by humans thanks to a combination of Azor's mind magic, which he's very good at, and also him installing something called Azor's Gateway, which canonically leads to the Sanctum of the Sun and is just a big locked door.
Yep.
Cool.
Some guy trying to open it with like lightning magic or runes or something.
So that's Jace Bellerin getting into it. He's the main character in the using his blue magic to just open it.
Okay.
So with the immortal sun out of the hands of the Sun Empire, the River Heralds are able to regain some footing on the plain. The humans' reach is reduced to a few coastal cities, and the heirs to the Emperor find a new capital called Pachatupa. But the alliances between the city-states is now tenuous at best. At the same time, despite not using the immortal sun, the influence of the River Heralds increases. With the humans driven out of much of the jungle, they migrate across the continent, and the land itself begins to heal from the plows and axes, which had broken it. The great river grows broader and deeper, tended as it was by the heralds. Things are going relatively well, but as the Legion of Dusk lands on Ixalan's shores, the Sun Empire finds itself driven inland, butting up against the heralds. Not to mention both the humans and the vampires remember the immortal sun and actively search for the lost city. It's not even just the humans and vampires. It turns out that, you know, you have bad actors in a socialist society, I guess, who are actively fighting against it.
Not that greed that Jamie alluded to earlier.
Right. So over time, there comes to be even merfolk who believe that they might harness the power squirreled away in Araska. So I have a longer quote for you guys here. This one's from The Shapers, also by Alison Lurs. I track Kumena quickly, simply, a straight line from where we were to where we are. Kumena's immaturity is as plain as his ego. He is a powerful shaper, yes, but he is artless, naive, as impetuous as his namesake. At their best, those chosen to bear the name of Kumena are freewheeling, passionate, biased toward action. This Kumena is all of these things, but with a sharp edge that makes him dangerous. When he was my student, he tested every boundary. I have fond memories of most of my students, but my memories of him are brimming with headaches and resentment. I would not go so far as to say I failed as a mentor, but rather that I succeeded only as much as one could have. Maturity cannot be taught, it must be developed. In front of me spreads the great expanse of the ocean. It is beautiful, baleful, avoided. Our preferred waters are murky and fresh, without the harsh salt of the coast. He stands in front of me, arms raised, agitating the sky and the waves into a frothy royal. We can conjure 1,000 storms 1,000 times, or we can raise a city only once, Kumena says over the roar of the sea. Which is the better expenditure of energy? Which is better stewardship, Tishana? Awakening Orazka is not an option. I assume my spell with magic of my own, his spell with magic of my own. My waves pull the enemy ships close, and my rain slaps their sails. I will not let you imperil more lives. I will not let you answer contingencies with contingencies and outrages with outrages. I sense him slip out of the spell, step back, look onward with awe at how my magic now tumbles the ships in the distance like leaves on a whitewater river. You always had more skill than I, he says, hushed. I ram one of the ships into the side of a sea stack. You think yourself wiser than your elders, I say. That will be your downfall, and your age will be yours. I look over my shoulder just in time to see Kumena's fist hit my face, and all goes dark. So, the merfolk, the River Heralds...
That's a good magic move, I gotta say, by the way.
Yeah,
punch
right?
the face.
Punch.
Yo, it's way more skilled than I in magic.
Yeah. There's a meme in D&D communities right now, which is like, if you're a wizard and you run out of spell slots and you're using your dagger to attack, doesn't that just make you a fighter? Like, isn't every class a fighter, just fancier, essentially? And when all else fails, punch works good.
Yep.
So I guess to hide Araska, the merfolk had like sank it into the swamp essentially, right? They got Shrek on watch. He's protecting it.
Color the skin of freshly pressed olive oil.
Just some fat green bitch standing there just
Hey, Fiona's not just some
Yeah, come on. So they sink it into the swamp, and now this guy Kumena is one of these merfolk who seems to think that like we can raise it, we can take its power for ourselves, and we can use it to fight back the invasions on our land, the wars on our shores, essentially. Eventually, Araska is awakened, and no one sensitive to magic is unaware of that. And it kind of kicks off the main story, the race for the ancient city of gold, even as when Jace Bellerin washes up on the shore and finds himself stuck by the power of the immortal sun. And that's Ixalan. That's kind of the prehistory of Ixalan. If you guys enjoyed the show, want to hear more, I'd be happy to go into the story of it. We'll probably touch on it when we talk about the Phyrexian invasions at some point in the future. God knows when, because we still haven't done Dominaria United, which I feel like I have to do before we get there, but we'll see if I ever do that, like five-parter.
Before we retire.
Yeah. So if you guys enjoyed the show, get in touch with us. If you want to hear more, join the Discord. If you guys would do us the favor, leave us a review on your podcast app of choice or iTunes or whatever it might be, and tell your friends about the show, because that's how we grow. Yimbo? Anything
Hell
you want to talk about?
Brothers. Let's get you into the Discord. Go to discord.gg/loreboys or check out that link in the description. If you end up also becoming a patron, it's just on the lowest tier is $3, and it'll get you into a Prime Folks channel, an AMA channel where we'll answer questions as best we can. We'll put the loser titles up so you can guess. So like we'll have funny jokes that we've said throughout the thing, like maybe like "oops, all scalps" or something like that, and that would be in the loser title, and you'd have to guess that we're talking about a city of gold. Somehow from that.
Oda Sphinx is one of them that I have written.
Oda Sphinx, there you go.
It's like, that's about the vampires.
Yeah. You also get access to those episode picks. So whenever Ethan points us to something, you can hop in the Discord and look along with us too. And it gives you bonus content. That bonus content being us talking for between 30 minutes to sometimes as long as an hour about what's going on this week. Like I've been playing the new Zelda, so if you wanted our take on the new Zelda, you got to get that $3 in. So
if you guys day drunk recording on a Saturday, sometimes the bonus is over an hour long too.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends on how we're doing. Pete and I had a longer one without Ethan. Is what we're talking about. I think.
That narc.
There's something about if there's one person gone, we talk so much more. Weirdly enough, like it's we're more respectful, I guess, trying to let somebody else get a word in edgewise, and like it's just silence, so we just kind of move on, I guess. But
yeah, and we never have that moment where there's two people having if there's two people having a conversation, the third could always kind of push it along. It's half an hour. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, somebody could punch the clock, basically. It's just like, time to go. This bonus audio is up.
Yeah, get a magician to punch our clock for us. And Pete, what about you?
At Loreboys Podcast on Instagram. I'm still, at time of recording, happily fun employed. I still got 5 more days. Or a full week, actually, before I need to go back to work. But I'm being a mailman. That's neat. And you can check out my publisher at Squared Idea on Instagram as well. I made a lot of progress with no job, obviously, to the point where one of my hands is wrapped up because 9 hours a day on the fucking computer is apparently unhealthy. So
yeah, unemployed, you do a lot of jerking off. You're gonna strain the wrists for sure.
Yeah,
nothing else to do.
Look at this shit.
Dude, you'd never survive World of Warcraft.
I know. I know. I started playing Warframe again for 8 days, and I'm just like, oh, fuck me, man, my bones.
So thanks again for listening, everybody. If you want to join the Patreon, support the show, we have patreon.com/theloreboys. You can get access to the stuff that they both already mentioned. So check it out. There's also a link in the description if you're interested. And for anyone who doesn't trust the Patreon, of course, we do have Loreboys Prime, which we've always offered. We are going to be forming some city states, and we are going to need our Loreboys primers to help us decide the best one for everyone, essentially. Or which one, I guess, should be which one should be in charge. So me, Jamie, and Pete all have our own ones. I'm making the City of Lead because it's it's a cheap metal, very efficient. As far as I know, there's no downsides to it. If it was good enough for the ancient Romans and their pipes, I mean, it was good enough for us, right?
Yeah.
I'm making a city out of scalps.
Okay.
It mostly comes from.
He says scalps, but it's all butt cheeks. Let's be real. You're making the city of butts, dude. Don't even you're gonna at me with that.
Yeah,
okay?
and we have our own religion, and everybody has to get scalped when they're a baby, and then the religious guy kisses your bloody scalp, and then you go on. Yeah,
he takes your scalp off, and he baptizes you with like a little bit of lemon water. And
oh god, oh man, I was making
heal the zits is the prayer that they all say.
I was making guac. I told you guys earlier. I got so many little cat scratches on my hand. I squeezed the lime. God damn.
Oh yeah, just cut your hand off at that point. Honestly,
yeah, exactly.
Me personally, I'm because I'm afraid of like conquest and like more primitive technology. For safety reasons, I'm doing Asbestos Town, completely fireproof.
Okay. Completely fire retardant and very safe. And
nice.
you guys got beautiful winters because you can make like lovely snowfall.
Yeah, we use it to make snow all the time. We pulverize it into like a very fine powder and then just blast it into the air. Catch it on your tongue. It's very cute.
And now with the advances in AI, we can make Ethan say the R word because he said the flame retardant. Like, oh no, now me too. Shit.
I'm safe.
And I think that would constitute a lore
boys.
Oh.
I googled Lore City, Ohio again, and the population is still under 300. So we are well on our way to killing all those people.
We've still got our city-state.